It was just past 7 in the morning when Jake Marshall pulled his truck into the gravel lot at Lakewood Shores, a quiet little spot outside Springfield, Missouri. The sun hadn't quite cleared the treetops yet, and the water was still calm like glass. Jake, 47, had been looking forward to this morning for weeks. He'd spent the night prepping his old aluminum fishing boat, polishing every inch, getting ready for a peaceful day out on the water, the kind of day he used to spend here with his dad when he was a kid. Just him, a thermos of hot coffee, and the lake. He was just started to unhitch the trailer when he heard footsteps crunching fast behind him. Turning, he saw her, Karen Walters, mid-50s, short blonde hair, sunglasses perched on her head despite the low sun. She was holding a clipboard like it was some badge of power and wore that kind of tight, forced smile that never quite reached the eyes. "You can't park that here," she said sharply, loud enough to carry across the quiet lot. Jake blinked. "Excuse me. This lot's private community, use only. You need to move that boat." Jake set down his wrench and stood up, eyeing her calmly. "Morning. You live here?" "I'm on the HOA board," she said, puffing up like that explained everything. "And you're not on the list of permitted lake users. This lake is for the Lakewood Shores Fishing Club only. You're trespassing." Jake looked around the lakes, edging no one else was there but him. "I don't see a sign anywhere." Karen tapped her clipboard. "There's one by the pavilion. You must have missed it." Jake gave a slow nod. "I've fished here plenty of times. Never had a problem." "Well, you've got one now," she snapped. "Either you move your boat, or I call it in." He sighed, trying to keep his voice even. "What's your name?" "Karen Walters," she said, standing taller like that was supposed to impress him. "Jake Marshall." He watched her scribble on the clipboard. "That boat's registered to you?" "It is," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "But you probably don't know the rules. You can't just show up and dump your boat wherever you like. We've had issues, trash left behind, damage. This area is for residents and their guests, supervised." Jake felt the way she said people like she'd already decided who he was, what he represented, and didn't bother hiding it. "I'm not breaking anything. Just trying to enjoy the water. You need to leave now." There was a long pause. Jake looked down at the gravel, then back out at the lake. He turned to her, voice low but steady. "You sure you want to push this?" Karen blinked. "Excuse me. Maybe you should double-check your facts. I think you're mistaken about who owns this lake." She laughed at a sharp, shrill sound that barely masked her irritation. "Is that supposed to scare me? Do you know how long I've lived here? Do you know who bought this lake 3 years ago? Who pays the taxes, maintains it, and signed off on your fishing club's access?" Jake's voice was calm, but firm. For a flicker of a second, something crossed her face, uncertainty. Then it was gone. "You're bluffing." Jake clipped the boat back onto the trailer. "You do what you have to do. I will too." Karen promised he'd be hearing from the board. What she didn't realize, she just picked a fight she wasn't ready for. By 9, Jake was out on the water near the reeds on the east side of the lake, casting quietly, not really expecting to catch much. The air was cool, peaceful, but that peace shattered when a white golf cart rolled up to the dock. Karen was behind the wheel, this time with a young man in a security windbreaker beside her. Radio clipped to his belt, likely one of the HOA's contracted guards. She planted her feet wide, like she was running a courtroom. "Jake Marshall, this is your final warning." Jake reeled in his line slowly, turned, and waved. "Morning, Karen. I've contacted the sheriff's office. You're in violation of HOA regulations. Leave immediately." The guard looked uncertain, whispered something to Karen. She shook her head, cutting him off. Jake stayed seated, calm as ever. "That guy with you, does he have a badge? Or just a walkie-talkie?" Karen stiffened. "You don't need to worry about that." Jake called out, "If you're going to accuse someone of trespassing on private land, you might want to make sure you're not the one trespassing first." The young guard stepped forward. "Sir, may I ask your business on the lake?" Jake nodded. "Fishing. Are you a resident?" "No." "Then I'm going to have to ask you to come ashore." Jake pulled his tackle box closer, but didn't stand. "Ever hear of Crescent Trust Holdings?" The guard paused. "Can't say I have." "Figures," Jake said. "They bought this land and lake 3 years ago. I'm the sole trustee." Karen scoffed. "You expect us to believe that?" Jake smiled. Don't really care what you believe. The paperwork's filed with the county recorder. Public record. You can look it up. The guard glanced between Karen and Jake. Do you have ID? In the truck. I'll show a deputy when they arrive. That's who you called, right? Karen doubled down. This lake has been part of our community for decades. Just because some shell company bought the land doesn't mean you can come in here acting like you own it and disrupt our peace. Jake's voice stayed steady. I didn't disrupt anything. You came to me. Her face flushed. Fine. Let the sheriff sort it out, but don't expect sympathy. Jake leaned back, casting another line. Not looking for sympathy, just some peace. But Karen couldn't let it go. This wasn't just about a boat. It was about control, and she was starting to lose hers. That afternoon, Jake drove home, the sun beating down hard, silence in the truck a welcome relief. At his modest greenhouse with fading white trim, his dog Max barked once from the porch as Jake pulled in. Inside, Jake kicked off his boots, grabbed an old framed photo from the shelf near the door of him as a kid, standing barefoot by the lake with his dad, both grinning wide, holding a fish. You'd have handled her better than I did, Dad, Jake muttered. He poured iced tea and sat quietly, thinking about Karen's certainty, the way she wrote his name like he was some kind of criminal. She never asked who he was, never cared. Jake stood, walked to the filing cabinet, and pulled out a blue folder marked Lakewood Shores Title and Access. He laid on the table deeds, transfer papers from Crescent Trust Holdings, signatures, a conditional agreement between the HOA and the trust granting community fishing access, renewable annually but subject to review. No renewal had been filed for 10 months. Jake chuckled dryly. Guess they forgot who they were dealing with. The lake had never been public, not really. The old owners allowed access out of generosity. His dad had helped build that understanding. He believed nature should be shared if respected. But since Jake inherited the trust, those once friendly neighbors had gone quiet. Some waves here and there, no real attempts to connect. Except Karen, she never even looked him in the eye. Jake studied the papers again. No loopholes. The access was a courtesy, not a right. And he had every legal ground to revoke it. Still, he wasn't one to act on impulse. He wanted to give benefit of the doubt. This wasn't just about rude behavior, it was about entitlement and respect. He dialed an old contact. Hey, Mr. Lang, yeah, I need you to pull the HOA agreement from 3 years ago, the fishing clause specifically. I want to double-check some things. No rush. It's time I took a closer look at who's been taking advantage of what my father left behind. Jake had no idea just how deep the entitlement ran, or how loud it'd get once someone finally said no. Monday morning, Jake stopped by the county recorder's office. He didn't need to had the papers, but something told him to make it official, clean, bulletproof. The clerk pulled up records, Jake's name, the property description, the deed lake, dock, surrounding Greenbelt, all his, held by Crescent Trust Holdings. No overlapping claims, no shared easements, no community ownership. Everything's in order, the clerk said politely. Jake nodded, breathing easier. This wasn't revenge. It was about respect. Karen hadn't just questioned his right, she looked him in the eye and decided he didn't belong. Calm as he was, her tone made one thing clear. This wasn't about rules. It was about power. Back home, Jake opened his laptop, drafted a letter to the HOA board direct, professional, no threats, citing the original access agreement, noting no renewal had been filed, and suspending community access effective immediately, pending further notice. He attached copies of the contract, the deed, notarized trustee statement. Letter airtight. He printed it, slipped it into an envelope, and drove to the HOA office himself. The parking lot was empty except 2 cars. He handed the envelope to the receptionist. Make sure Karen gets this. That evening, sitting on his porch with Max at his feet, the sunset casting gold across the lawn, his phone rang unknown number. Mr. Marshall? Ron Carter here, acting president of the HOA board. We received your letter. Jake stayed silent. Ron continued. Look, maybe there's been a misunderstanding. No need to escalate. There's nothing escalated, Jake said quietly. The agreement expired. Access was unauthorized. I brought it back in line. I get it, Ron said fast. but revoking access might not sit well with residents. Jake nodded. After how Karen treated me, it's best we take a pause. Would you meet to discuss a compromise? Jake took a sip. Let's see how folks handle a little humility first. He hung up. By Wednesday, Jake couldn't even park at the grocery store without catching stares. Emails from board members polite, but furious phone calls from numbers he hadn't seen in years. Whispers from neighbors who barely knew him. One afternoon, at the hardware store, a man with a gray beard and overalls approached. You Jake Marshall? Yeah, Jake said cautiously. Name's Bill Turner. I live down Valley Road. Heard what happened? Jake shook his hand. Bill said, not all of us feel like Karen. She's always acted like she runs the whole place. Told my wife our porch furniture didn't fit the neighborhood last year. Can you believe that? Jake cracked a smile. A chair's a chair, right? Bill laughed bitterly. At the post office, someone slipped an unsigned note into Jake's mailbox. Bold headline. Local man revokes community lake access. Retaliation or power grab. The paragraph called him disruptive, unnecessary. No signature, but everyone knew who'd written it. That night, Jake walked Max down to the lake. A couple fished silently nearby, watching him. Back on his porch, he stared at the sunset again. He hadn't started this fight, but it was clear the neighborhood didn't like being reminded access was a privilege, not a right. Next morning, a new voice called Andrea Monroe, new HOA board member, recently elected after a string of resignations. I just want to apologize, she said. Karen doesn't speak for all of us. Some of us are embarrassed. Jake kept calm. Good to know. There's talk of an emergency meeting. Some want to reverse your decision. Others want to negotiate. I'm not interested in negotiating, Jake said firmly. I want respect. Andrea hesitated but understood. By Friday, the HOA office buzzed with tension. Jake's letter was everywhere: backyard BBQs, emails, whispered conversations. Fishing club members, all Nuna neutral. Inside the meeting room, Karen stood at the head of the table, arms folded, jaw tight. Ron Carter rubbed his forehead. Whether we like it or not, Jake's within his rights. Older member, Don Cooper, grumbled. So we just let him lock us out like trespassers? Karen snapped. That lake's been part of this neighborhood for decades. He can't just cut us off because of a grudge. Ron glanced at her. This started because you accused a man of trespassing on his own land. Silence. Back at the lake, Jake wasn't patrolling, just taking stock: broken benches, trash, fences not fixed for over a year, despite HOA's maintenance responsibility under the agreement. Bill showed up again, this time with his grandson Lucas, holding a trash bag and gloves. We figured we'd help, Bill said. Might not fix everything, but it's a start. Jake handed Lucas a rake and pointed to a patch with broken glass. By sundown, the dock looked renewed, benches solid, path cleared. Jake felt something shift, not just the place, but the people. At church the next morning, some heads turned when Jake walked in. A few nodded politely. One woman whispered, "That lake's lucky to have you." Jake thanked her, not knowing her name. Later, a man Jake hadn't met approached him in the parking lot, glasses sliding down his nose. You Jake Marshall? Live a couple streets down. My kid caught his first fish at that lake last summer. Never got to thank you. Jake didn't need thanks, but it mattered because it was sincere. That night, walking Max along the trail, Jake thought about his dad, the smell of fresh grass, reels spinning, early morning stillness. People don't always know the value of something until it's nearly gone, his dad used to say. Jake understood now. Respect isn't handed out in letters or meeting sits earned, plank by plank, person by person, choice by choice. A week later, Jake stood at the lake's edge, cool air, still water, sunrise painting orange streaks. No fishing rod this time, just quiet. Under his arm, a revised access agreement, the new board's work, clear terms, scheduled maintenance, rotating committee, 3-strike littering rule, mandatory annual renewal. Every member must take a short orientation on the lake's history and ownership. Jake didn't do this for control or apologies he never got. He did it because letting people walk all over something precious changes how you see yourself, and he wasn't about to let one woman's entitlement rewrite a legacy built over decades. Later, signing the new agreement at the clubhouse, Andrea leaned in. We're going to do better. Jake nodded. I'll hold you to that. Passing a group of teenagers near the bulletin board, one shy boy with a fishing hat stepped forward. Mr. Marshall, my dad said you fixed the dock. Told me to thank you. Jake smiled. Just take care of it. Walking back to his truck, a peace settled over him, not from winning, but from being understood, even just a little. That Saturday morning, he remembered Karen storming up with her clipboard. How quick she was to judge. He hadn't yelled, hadn't fired back. He let the truth and the law do the talking. Sometimes the best way to earn respect isn't to demand it, it's to walk with it quietly and firmly, letting others catch up. And maybe, just maybe, standing still can make enough noise for change. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed before they knew your name, remember, silence doesn't mean weakness, and standing your ground with dignity speaks louder than any argument. What do you think? Should Jake have just backed down, or was he right to stand firm? Share your thoughts, because sometimes justice isn't about taking sides, but about respect for what's truly yours.